Hi everyone, I'm going to continue this sheep painting that I've done on previous streams, but it's been a while now since I've tackled this particular painting. So my plan today is I'm going to hopefully get close to finishing this main sheep and lamb. Before I get into that, just wanted to give you a quick update on some recent work I've uploaded to my website. So this one, you may remember if you've been watching the channel for a while, was painted plein air down at Sidmouth. And I mentioned in that video, as I said, it's some time ago, I was going to put a bus stop sign there. So the idea is just a bit of fun. These three people are waiting for the bus. And is it ever going to come? Because the tide's come all the way in. But they're being faithful, they're still waiting. And then if you saw my recent video, I recently took part in a plein air painting competition up at Gloucester, so that video is up on the channel right now if you want to see my adventure. But this one, that's the first painting I did of the busker, along with one of the skyline of the city, if you can see that, and the rundown, no longer used nightclub. I don't know if you can see all that on camera, but those three are up on the website as well. So if you want to take a closer look at any of those, if you go to the website then, which is just mikejewelry.co.uk, you can just click on each image and then zoom in to get a good look at the brushwork and the colours and things. And now this one is also just been recently uploaded, and this is a plein air study of the multicoloured sea down at Budleigh, Salterton, and I may put the video for that one up as just an ASMR thing at some point in the future. But there we go, some new work. Just thought I'd let you know about that. Okay, so on to this sheep then. So, my palette today consists of Atelier Interactive Acrylics, as before, cad yellow, ultramarine blue, cad red, burnt umber, but this is titanium white now. I've been using tinting white for the most part before, and the titanium white is the more opaque of those two whites. So this is going to create some highlights for me. So I'm just loading that onto a little 1/4 inch wide flat synthetic brush, and I'm going to begin by putting down some little highlights on the head of this sheep. So my hope is that most of the hard work has been done in this painting, because I've done the drawing, I've blocked in everything, included some textures and things. And so I'm hoping that by adding a variety of highlights in different colours and different areas of the painting, it's just going to bring a real sense of light and a little bit more drama to these main two animals. And if you remember from the previous streams, the idea is that the others are going to be deliberately left somewhat less resolved, so that the focus is where we are at the moment. Now, when I add highlights to my paintings, I don't make them all pure white, so I will be adding some little bits of colour to these highlights that I'm putting down, partly because that's the way things are in real life, but also it adds a little extra dimension to the painting if you vary things a bit. And but the reason I'm going in with the pure white now is just for simplicity's sake. Obviously I can just take this colour straight out of the tube, or this paint straight out of the tube, and then I can add some more colours to this in a moment. okay, so reasonably happy with that so far. So I'm just going to grab a touch of ultramarine blue and mix that into the paint. Now, previously I've been diluting my paint with quite a bit of water, but I'm using this at the moment straight out of the tube, because obviously that gives me a thicker and more opaque patch of colour. So I just added a touch more blue there. Now I'm being fairly considered when I put these little marks down, because what I don't want to do is have a repetition of the same shape over and over throughout the painting. And I can also just lightly drag the brush over the somewhat textured layers of paint that I've already put down. Okay, so having done that so far, I'm going to go and add a little bit more blue. Just a corner of yellow. So I've got a few highlights within that reflected light that's coming up off of the grass. And then we'll take that colour, put a few touches in there as well. Let's go a little greener. So we'll take a bit more yellow, a bit more blue. I think that will do for now for that particular colour, so I'm just cleaning my brush off. Cleaned it fairly well, haven't been too thorough, because it's not going to matter too much for what I mix up next. So some of the yellow, touch of the red, touch of the blue, a bit more red. Let's see what that looks like when we put it down on the painting. So I've got quite a dark shadow here under the chin of the animal. I want to soften the lower edge of that. That's not too bad, actually. some of that shadow. Around there. So yes, I'm fairly happy with that colour at the moment. Now some of that same colour I can put in down here. And on the chest. And that same colour I can just add a little bit to this little lamb to bring him out of the deep shadow a bit more than currently is. So at the moment I'm fairly content with that. I'm just looking to see if I can perhaps... No, I think I'm going to leave that there. We'll take that same colour that's still on the brush and mix some white in. Let's get a bit more of the brown. And let's see what this paler version of the same colour looks like when we put it down. Not too bad. I think I'm going to use some of that under the jawline there. I think that's working reasonably well from my point of view. I think that's starting to bring this lead animal to life. Now, what I want to do is just add a little bit more yellow to that mixture. And maybe even just the tiniest amount of the red. Oh, that hasn't changed the colour too much actually. But let's put some of that down there. Just strengthen up the cheek a bit. Probably could do with some of that same colour up there as well. And then we'll actually just scumble a bit of that over here. So that's working reasonably well so far. Next step then is to just put in a few darker darks without going too strong. So one of the ways I enjoy doing this is just going back to how I kind of start out with my pure ultramarine blue So the underside of that jaw, oh, that's way too wet. What I did there was I washed my brush out and then forgot that I was I'm not working in thin layers at the moment. So let's just dry the painting there. And also I'm just drying my brush. So let's try that again. So now using the ultramarine blue as it is straight out of the tube, we'll come back in and attempt to, don't know how well that's going to show up on camera because it's quite shiny at the moment, the ultramarine blue, so in this light you may not be able to see exactly how that's looking until it dries back. Yes, that's not too bad. I'm not going to go too wild here, but I'm just going to put a couple of little touches of that same colour. So for example, where I've got a natural kind of triangle of fleece, I can just put a little touch of that blue shadow underneath a mark that's already there. That's probably enough of that, I think. So now the next thing to do is I just want to make this a little paler. So I'm going to mix that in with the kind of off green I had before, but put a touch of the burnt umber in as well. That's quite a nice shadow colour for the front of the nose. So I'm just going to switch to a different brush. So I've switched to this brush, which has a very fine tip, and I'm going to take some of the ultramarine blue and some of the burnt umber and mix those two together to give me a nice dark. And we'll darken the nostril there. And then I want to be able to just kind of reload the brush. Put a line in under there, under that part of the mouth. A line in for where the lips meet. Just define that lower jaw a little bit more. And then let's see if I get the camera a little bit closer for you. So now I'm going to use that same colour to just give me an outline for the eye, which I'm not sure I've placed in exactly the right spot there. Just look at that again. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just looking back and forth between my reference and my painting. And just trying to double check my proportions of this head. not too far out, but I think what I need to do is just, we'll go back to the little brush that I had before, clean that out, and I'll put the colour of the eye in first. So as you can see, I'm mixing up the cad yellow and a bit of the red to give me a fairly deep orange. Now I don't want it to be bright orange, so I'm going to pick up some of that brown I mixed up earlier. So I think this eye needs to come down here a little bit. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, good. Now, while that little application of paint is still wet, what I'm going to do is go back to that very pointed brush, which I'm just cleaning out at the moment. And I'm dipping that into the straight out of the tube titanium white. So hopefully you can see I've just got the tiniest amount of white paint on the brush, and I'm just going to put, oh no, that's the brush is far too wet. So sorry, just drip water onto the painting. Let's try that again. So just drying the brush out. Let's wash it again first. So drying the brush out, squeezing out all the water, and we will try again. So again, I've just got the tiniest amount of white paint on there. Just put like a little highlight in there, nothing very much. And then that same bit of white paint, let's get a bit more. Going to pick up some of that orange I mixed up earlier, but create a lighter version of that same colour. And then below that highlight that I just put in, just going to put a more or less horizontal line of that lighter colour I just mixed up. So within the eye, we've got two different types of highlight. So now, just cleaned and dried off the super pointy brush again. So I'm going to come back in with my ultramarine blue, mixed in with a bit of the burnt umber. And if I can get a good point on the brush, put in the pupil of the eye, so that's worked reasonably well. Define the upper edge of the eye. Now I wouldn't normally outline an eye as I'm doing here in quite this way. I wouldn't normally use all one colour, but because it's all kind of lost in the dark colouring of the sheep's head in this region, I feel it's okay to, I can get away with it basically. So while I've got that on the brush, I'm just going to add a little more dark patterning to the head. And just cleaning the brush out a little bit, going back to the ultramarine blue. So some of the line of the head has got lost a little bit when I've painted, so I just want to very gently redefine that. So fairly carefully at my reference. So the nose kind of comes up a little higher than it appears at the moment. So. That's a bit better. Okay, that's brought things back in line. So, switching back to the little flat square brush, I'm now going to come in again with my titanium white and a bit of the blue, and we'll just tidy up the shape of the head there. Put some of that there to show where the ear is a bit more clearly. Now I've got kind of a second line of the ear there, almost like, you know, an earlier iteration of where the ear should be. I'm happy to leave that. I don't mind that in my finished work. A little bit of an indication that how you got from one place to another in terms of the preparation or the steps towards the finished painting, but also it just adds a little bit of life, I think, to the work. Now, just looking at this, just trying to move my camera a little bit for you. Looking at this other animal over on the left, and I don't want to add too much detail because if you have watched previous episodes or previous stages of this this painting, you'll know that the whole idea, as I mentioned earlier, is to leave this one less defined than this, and then these on the right, which are sort of almost off camera now, they're very poorly defined, deliberately so, and then the ones in the background are barely there. But I'm just wondering if I can, or should I, add a few touches here and there. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to come in with, well, we won't add any more detail, but I think I can add a little bit more of a sense of light on this animal and also just refine the form a bit in doing that. So I'm going to put a bit of a highlight there and there. So this is more or less pure white at the moment. And then I'm going to take that and mix it in with some of the ultramarine blue. Go back to my ultramarine blue, mix that in with a bit of the burnt umber. Give the animal a nostril. Darken the face a little bit. Just add a little bit more defining shadow there. I think that's working fairly well, because the outline of the animal is kind of disappearing a little bit too much into the background. So I don't want to do, I don't want to go crazy, but just perhaps bring it to life a little bit more than I had. And then, having put that line work down, come back in with my pure titanium white and then just break it up again just a bit, so that those marks aren't too heavy. But there's enough of a shadow there to add a little bit of definition. Oh, maybe I've gone, I don't know, maybe I've gone too dark there now. So just mixing in a touch of blue again with that white to just lighten that. And then I think that one's almost done, that animal. What I do want to do is, perhaps I have made the face a little bit too dark now. Well, let's find out. So what I'm going to do is just grab some of that orange that I mixed up before, add a touch of the burnt umber to it, so that it's a darker version of the eye colour I used before. And I have no intention of putting all the eye in, but or at least not at the moment, but just show that the animal does have an eye. And come back in, mix that colour in with the blue, bit of the burnt umber perhaps. That's perhaps a better way to go. Put a bit of shadow down here. Okay, so I don't think things are looking too bad. Let's just pull back a little bit with the camera. So I think I've managed to do what I wanted to do. I've brought the sense of life to that main animal in particular. And then the lamb here is still hidden in shadow, but without being dark in a sinister way, which is what it was a few episodes ago. This one's defined a little better. Just wondering if I should extend its back end a little more. I think I might actually. The body could do with being a little bit longer, perhaps. Yeah, let's just do that. But again, we'll keep it fairly loose. And then but before I do that, actually what I'll do is I just want to add nothing very much. So I've got a very frayed 1/2-inch flat brush here, which I'm just dipping the tips into my titanium white. So I just want to add a few white highlights onto the grass in the foreground. And that's probably enough of that. So let's go back in with a bit of blue. So I've got a bit of an off-white, touch of the brown. Way too much. Let's see what that looks like if we put that down. Oh, I quite like that colour. Yeah, I think that works a bit better without being overly fussy about the description of that animal. All right, so I may end up doing a few finishing touches, but I think I'm pretty much done. Although, so the only part of the painting I'm wondering about really are these background characters here, whether I should just define them a bit better than I have, with perhaps very pale paint to remove some of the line work. So let's give that how can I put it? I'm not trying to define them, but just give them more of a sense of form. So let's get a bit of the tinting titanium white, touch of burnt umber. So keep things neutral. A little bit of the blue, neutral and cool. Not different enough in tone, so grabbing a bit more of the white. And then just a touch of the burnt umber to that same mix. So hopefully just enough to sort of indicate that those, I think that works rather better. Definitely not describe those two animals, but better than they were. And that's intentional to leave that barely described. But I think they look more like barely described sheep than barely described random blobs of paint, which is perhaps what they were looking like before. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave that one there for today. And I may be back again, but I think I'm probably done with that one. All right, well, hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video.